So, do you want to make a mad robot sampler? Yes, you do. That is the answer. So this is just a quick voice master patch. What I do is I open this toggle and I speak for a bit. And before you know it, I'm a robot. How good does that sound? Great. I know, I made it. So, closing that, saving it, let's jump into our new one. So I'm just going to quickly size this up. So, the first thing we're going to do is worry about bringing our voice in and being able to record that on a loop, or play it on a loop I should say. So I'm going to start off with my easy DAC, or my easy ADC, and I'm also going to make my easy DAC input output sorted. Or is it? Simply we're going to use the record buffer here, and all this does, like yesterday, is it records when you toggle it into a buffer of a certain length. So we're going to do the same as we did with our music player, and we're going to need to name everything directly so it knows where to go. So I'm going to do voice, and then I'm going to type 2 because we want our channels to be 2 so it's in stereo, not just mono, otherwise you'll be coming out of one ear only. And we put our easy ADC into the first 2 channels because they stand for the first 2 inputs. And then all we need to start recording is a big toggle going into the first section on record. So now if we were to turn on this toggle, it would technically start recording into voice, but there is no buffer for it to go yet. So we're going to make the buffer voice. I'm going to set it to a duration of 400 milliseconds, so 4 seconds, and again I'm going to give it 2 channels. I'm also going to set up a waveform just so we can visualize what we're looking at here. And I'm going to attach that set voice, so I'm going to tell it to read the buffer. I'm going to do when it finishes loading, so when we complete our recording into it, we're going to tell it to update its waveform. Now we could be good to go here as long as we were happy with having a maximum or minimum of 4 seconds of speech. But I want it so that it stops as soon as I turn the toggle off again, otherwise we have a lot of dark space. So we're going to add a little if statement to the bottom of our toggle that says if item 1 is equal to 1, then send a bang, else, so if it's not, out 2, send a bang. So if our toggle is 1, then I want the first output to be 1 to send a bang. If it's not, I want the second output to send a bang. And why does that matter? That matters because timer requires a bang from the first outlet and the second outlet, so I need to know when it's turned on and when it's turned off. So the first one goes in there, second one goes in there. And now, if we have a look at our timer, it's going to output a value depending on how long it's left open, so we can update our buffer dynamically. We don't need to float, so I'm just going to round it to 1 value coming out of the timer. And we'll use this value again later when we're actually playing it. We're not going to update the buffer, otherwise we'd lose any recording we already had. We have our toggle, we have it recording, and it's going into the buffer. We need a way to play it. So we're going to set up our groove again. We're going to link it to voice, and we're going to give it 2 channels. And it's in here, in the loop maximum, so how long is the maximum loop going to be, that we plug our round into. But what we're also going to need, just so we can have a maximum, our buffer match every time that we start a new recording of 4 seconds, every time that we turn on the toggle, we're going to reset the maximum loop time to 4 seconds again. So toggle turns on, record opens up. Groove is set to a 4 seconds maximum to match our buffer's 4 seconds maximum. So no matter what happens now, we'll have at least 4 seconds of looping. If we cut it off early, then groove will just start with a repeat earlier. So no matter what happens, there's always going to be 4 seconds of data. We just might not access it all. We're going to need a sig, just so we can play our track in forward, reverse, left, right, center. And I'm going to plug a float into that. And into that I'm going to put a load message 1. And what that's going to do is it's just going to set the default value of our signal to play forward. And if we really wanted, we can play about with the float and reverse it or do some crazy things, but we'll have a look at that in a second. And finally, I'm going to pass it a message, which is loop $1, plug a toggle in, and plug that into the top of a groove as well. So we can loop playback, timer controls, groove, loop limit. So if we plug in 2 gains, because we've got 2 channels, and what I'm going to do is a little trick here is if you put the slider value into the top of the other one, it means you'll constantly have matching gains as long as you only use the left one. So, moment of truth. Hello. Right, okay, there we go. I had to add a 0, which resets playback. My only guess could be is that the playhead was further than the repeat spot we set, and it was just having a complete fallout about it. So there we go. Add a 0 message into your groove and just click that anytime it doesn't play any sound, and that usually fixes it. In other news, what would happen now is if I turn this up and I start speaking, at some point, there you go, you will hear the previous recording underneath it. So if we add a clear message into our buffer that's banged every time that we turn on our toggle again, it means that the buffer will be cleared every single time that we start a new recording, and we don't need to worry about recording over ourselves. Now let's diagnose why our waveform isn't showing. I am not sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the one from buffer because that seems to work all the time. There we go, just like that. That one works. There is probably a reason for it, but I'm too lazy to work it out right now. So, we've got our voice coming in and playing. How do we turn it into a robot? We're going to use something called which is a spectral process managing for patchers. And just like if I type P, this is meant to be another patcher. It's a sub-patcher, but you need to define it beforehand. So we're going to start a new max window, and we're going to use the in. Make sure you see inlet 1 and inlet 2. I'm not going to go into too much explanation of this because I really don't understand it myself. I know how to make this work the way we want it to. So we've got 2 inputs. Next thing we're going to do is we need to add a card to pull. Make sure you've got your signal wave at the end. We put our real input into the start and our fake input into the second. Again, a real input to the start, fake input into the second. We're going to multiply the 2 signals together. And we're going to pass the result of that into a pull to car because we need to turn it back. And we're going to bring down the theta from here. And we're going to send that to our out. And make sure again you give it a value. So this is our first outlet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save that in my Dropbox folder, my Max project, and new. I'm going to do robot voice tutorial. And this is just this is creating an abstraction of our patch. Robot voice PFFT. And then important, we must save our patch in the same place. So robot master. Now, if we do And then the name of our patch, which was robot voice. You'll now well, it clearly wasn't robot voice. Robot voice. Pfft. So remember, in robot voice. Pfft. And now you'll see I have my two inlets and one outlet in comparison to one that's spelt wrong, where it doesn't load the right patch, because that doesn't exist. Right, so how do we turn our voice into music? We're going to add a key, we're going to add ourselves a key slider. We're going to add a MIDI to frequency. This is the easiest way to make music if you've not played with Macs properly before. And then we're going to add a saw just to turn this frequency into some music. And you can add in whatever number you want here. You can play about with this. Put that to our second output. And connect our inputs to our left and right channel so they're all single. Hook your DAC to the output. And there we go, we're a robot. So now you can play with the keys. And there we go. We have our recorder that takes our voice, records a sample of it, and allows us to sample it into a robot. Not bad for a night's work.